What's up, everyone? Welcome to the RotoGrinders Live. Welcome to Grinders Live. I was going to say morning grind just because that's what me and the man I am joined with just record here the other night, and so I almost got in deja vu mode. Keith Eister, how you doing, Keith?
Doing well. A little two-man booth here. Dino with a late scratch, apparently, so only 6 games to talk about. I think we'll have plenty of time to say all the things that we need to say for sure.
Yeah, and I am, of course, not Dean 789046482301. I am TJ Zwarich, and a little late. Apologies for being a little late, but I have reasons, and it's not like we're going to be running short on time either. I'm walking down to the show. I'm nice and early. I got my laptop in one hand. I got a big, large iced cappuccino from Tim Hortons in the other hand. I'm walking down the stairs and I fall down the stairs. And you know, when you fall down the stairs, you get like, it just seems like it's happening so slow. Like, oh no, what am I going to do? I'm about to fall. What do I do in this situation? And I just felt like it was froze. I was frozen, but I couldn't stop it. It was happening in slow motion. I tumble all the way down the stairs. And with each step, not only is there pain, but my iced cappuccino just spills more and more on top of me, on top of all my clothes, my face, my arms. If you notice, my hair looks a little wet right now. That's because there's iced cappuccino in it. And just like all over the floor at the bottom. So I'm cleaning that all up while just like rumbling through in pain. But we made it through. Dean's a late scratch, not sure where, but we hope that all is well with Dean today. And it's a small slate. We got an hour and 20-ish, hour and 15, hour and 10 minutes before the crunch time crew comes in. But we only got 6 games to go through today. We had a bunch in the morning as well. How are you doing, Keith? Has your day gone smoother than mine?
Smoother than taking a tumble down the stairs for sure. At least it was the laptop and the cappuccino instead of the baby. It could have been worse.
Yeah,
glad you're all
absolutely.
right. Hopefully you're not too sore when you wake up in the morning. You're getting older, man. The body doesn't quite take the abuse the same as it used to. So hopefully you're not feeling too rough. But I'm doing well. This is a fun little slate, even though there's only 6 games. I think pitching is really interesting. There's definitely some conversations to be had there. And there's some offenses in good spots too. So overall, I think it's a fun slate. We'll try not to break it down too quick. I know being a host and trying to stretch the time can be difficult at times. So I'll try to talk about the things that I like a little bit more than usual since we have the 2-man booth. But we'll make it happen.
All right. Well, yeah, actually, I think what Dean is doing today is he's out making like just tier lists for the next few months. Like he just is taking the time right now, writing them all down. And so we're going to do a little bit things differently today since it's only a 2-man booth, since it's only 6 games, as opposed to just kind of like tiering the stacks. We'll just actually spend more time breaking down each game, similar to how we would have done it on the morning grind the other day. And just make sure we're spending time with each of these because we do have a lot of time to go through with only 6 games. There's not much weather to worry about. There's no weather to worry about. There's just some good hitting weather on the slate. In New York, Steve's Mets. We got winds out to left at 10 to 15 miles an hour. In Boston, in Fenway, we got winds out to left at 10 to 15 miles an hour. And we finally got some heat. We finally got not just 75, 80 degrees. It's actually turning into some summer weather, which Roth will talk a little bit more about. But I know he was pretty pumped about that when he was looking at the forecast this morning for the morning grinds. Is these weren't just your regular, 75-degree games. We're starting to push 90 degrees in some of these. We're getting over 80 degrees in most of them. And so the good weather is finally coming. What's your kind of slate overview on the slate, even before pitching? You just look at it, it's 6 games. How many lineups are you playing? How are you looking to attack this one?
I've got 40 lineups today, so I'll be spreading out a little bit for a 6-game slate, I would say, because I think there's a lot to like on this slate. Luis Castillo getting scratched, I think, made the decisions actually tougher at pitcher, because obviously Castillo in a matchup with the White Sox could have rivaled the top two pitchers on the slate. There's a very clear top two. We have to spend on them. But the offenses, I mean, I think there's some pretty clear offenses as well. We've got a couple of teams up near 5 run totals, but there's more than just 1 or 2. So offense is interesting as well. You could play it where you play the 2 best pitchers and then you spread out at offense. I think I'm going to take some shots on some lesser owned pitchers on this slate. I think it'll be a unique way to build. And I'll still spread out a little bit at offense because I do think there are multiple teams in good spots. But like I said, for a small slate, I think there are many different ways you can go.
Yeah, I agree with you. I typically do like a 150 max build, but I'm just doing one lineup today because in addition to my tumble down the stairs, I've already written a couple articles for Agents of Fandom. I have had an appointment with Baby earlier today. I got an Agents of Fandom podcast later. My sister is flying from across the country to come meet the baby, so I don't have a lot of time to babysit lineups tonight, and so I'm just going to go with the one lineup, and it does make things a little bit tougher because the chalk at pitcher is kind of congregating to 2 players, maybe 3 players quite heavily on this slate, and the options that are chalky are the very clear, really good ones. It's not like it's bad chalk that I don't like. It's pretty good chalk. So it does raise the decision tonight. What do I want to do with my lineup? Do I eat the chalk at pitcher, find a way to get different with a stack, or do I make a pivot off of some of the top end guys, Garrett Crochet, Joe Ryan, who we might be seeing 50-ish% ownership on both of these guys tonight?
Yeah, I think that's a real decision point. Like you said, they're clearly the top 2 pitchers on the slate. Crochet has the best strikeout rate on the slate and the best strikeout matchup. Joe Ryan has been one of the best pitchers from a skill perspective and gets an awesome matchup against Oakland. So I agree. That's a very important decision point. There's some options to feel good about below that. I don't know that they're great options. I'm unfortunately seeing a little ownership on the one guy that I really did like last night on the morning grind when I broke it down with Tim. Did not expect him to be this owned, but the Luis Castillo scratch definitely impacted that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you're playing 40 lineups. I'm only playing 1. We're gonna do the feud that Dean usually does with me since we got some time to kill here. I want to know what pitchers are in your pool if you're running 40 lineups. I don't know if you have the 40 lineup somewhat set yet. I don't know if you have your build somewhat set yet. But how many guys are you expecting to have in your pool for 40 lineups?
Build is set for the most part. I would say I'll still do some tinkering up to lock here. I am still trying to figure out if I want to dabble with the super cheap end of pitching. Right now, my answer is no, I think, but there's some interesting conversations to be had with super cheap pitching because of what you can do with the bats if you do that. But right now, I for sure have 6 locked into the pool.
For sure, 6 locked into the pool. All right. I think this should be fairly easy then. We'll start with the easy ones. Joe Ryan is in the pool. What do you plan to do with Joe Ryan if he's in the pool at current projection of 49% ownership?
Yeah, so this is a tough decision. Is Joe Ryan really going to be more owned than Crochet is my first question, because I think a lot of people would rather play Crochet. He just has a better strikeout rate. Joe Ryan is a good strikeout pitcher, not an elite strikeout pitcher. I believe he's around 27% this season. Let me pull that up. Yeah, 27.3% for Joe Ryan. Oakland is a better offense than the White Sox. I think I'm going to end up a little bit underweight on Joe Ryan just because I don't think the upside is quite as high as Crochet. When it was an issue between Castillo in this group along with the other 2, it would have been more interesting. Castillo would have eaten a bunch of ownership as well. So now that the ownership is kind of condensed around Ryan and Crochet, it's a little bit too high for my liking. I love Joe Ryan. I think he's an incredible pitcher. I love the matchup as well. Oakland strikes out a ton. He just doesn't have the elite strikeouts of Crochet. So I'm going to go a little bit underweight. Now, I'm not talking like 50% underweight. I'm not playing 20% Joe Ryan or anything like that. I'll be in that like 35% range, probably 40% range. But just a little bit under the field, and that'll allow me to take some stands on some of the other pitchers here.
Well, the next one in my guest list will, of course, be Garrett Crochet, and I think this is a perfect time to go with this talking point. what do you think the percentage of crochet you will have is, and will it all be impacted by no Cal Raleigh in the lineup that just came out, which of course, with no Cal Raleigh, you lose that 30% strikeout rate, but you do lose a power bat too, because they have Sebi Zavala coming in to replace him. And then I believe there is one other difference because Dylan Moore is in there and I didn't see him in the projected lineup. And so there's one other difference, but I can't actually pinpoint what it is. Who else is not in this lineup here? Oh, Rivas. Rivas is not in the lineup and Dylan Moore is there. So it's actually not any worse than we're projected because you get the Moore from Rivas upgrade and you get the Raleigh to Zavala downgrade.
Yeah, I mean, when we're dealing with an elite strikeout pitcher like Crochet, I'm not too concerned about matchup. I mean, obviously the matchup helps things. As far as his upside, I don't think that it necessarily downgrades it all that much. I think the power bat being out of the lineup is the more important thing. I don't know what Zavala's strikeout rate is off the top of my head. If I recall, he's a decent strikeout guy as well. I can try to find that here. We have plenty of time. So
in the meantime, smash that like button. We're at 30 right now, but we will be doing some Spidey Bombs every 50 likes. And I'm going to demand that Keith also gives me an Eister Fleister every 50 likes as well. So smash the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, you got to click hide chat and then hit the like button, bring the chat back up. If not, all you got to do is take your mouse, slide it over if you're on a browser. Smash that like button. We'll get Spidey Bombs and Eister's Fleisters every 50 likes.
Yeah, my memory was correct on Zavala. Huge strikeout guy. So this is actually a pretty big upgrade for Crochet. Dylan Moore being in there is probably a downgrade from Rivas, but Zavala has struck out at a 38.6% rate since the beginning of last season against left-handed pitching. So taking Raleigh out and inputting Zavala, that just helps Crochet even more.
All right, so we know Ryan and Crochet are going to be in the pool. Are you assuming, without giving away any hints on who else could be in the pool, will they be your two highest owned pitchers?
Crochet will be my highest owned pitcher by a pretty solid margin. I'm trying to get up to at least 60% Crochet. I'm just chasing the upside there. 34% strikeout rate in the best strikeout matchup in baseball. So unless he gives up a couple of homers or he can't find his control, I like him to be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate a lot more often than Joe Ryan. So he's easily my highest owned. Joe Ryan will be in that top tier. I'm debating on what to do with one other guy still. A guy that I mentioned I liked quite a bit last night, but wasn't expecting this amount of ownership on him. Ryan will be at least in the top 3 for sure.
Eric Johnson asking in chat, how are the White Sox plus 104? It's because Garrett Crochet is pitching against Emerson Hancock. That's essentially the reason. But what I don't actually mind the idea of doing today is kind of double dipping and going, if you want to make a bet on that game, go White Sox first 5 innings, assuming Crochet doesn't give up much, and then take Seattle to win the game. And you could potentially get good odds on plus odds on both of those. And that might be, or like not plus odds on both, but close to at least. And I think that would be an interesting way to play that one. Who just sang banners asked, do we have time to briefly talk about Yahoo pitching? Yeah, we do. Do we ever have time? We got all the time in the world. So we'll go through Keith's 40 entry pool on DraftKings, but then we can absolutely make the pivot to FanDuel and Yahoo after that as well. Next up, I'm going to say Brandon Pfaadt is in the pool.
He is, and this is the guy that I did not expect to see 25+% ownership on Brandon Pfaadt. I thought I was going to get him at like 10% today, and that was when Luis Castillo was on the slate, mind you. So that certainly changed some things. I just felt like the top tier of pitching was really strong today, and not a lot of people would go down. Brandon Pfaadt's been really good this season. His top line numbers aren't the best, but his xERA and his Sierra are both better than his ERA. The strikeouts are above league average now, and his walk rate has improved incredibly, and it was already great. Walks are down to 4.6%. Strikeout percentage is 23.4%. His ERA at 4.60 doesn't look good, but you look at his xERA, it's 3.06. His Sierra is 3.55. He has pitched incredibly well and gotten unlucky from a sequencing standpoint. That's basically just how hits happen against him. He has a 61% strand rate. The major league average is like 75%. So essentially, way too many base runners that get on are scoring way higher than the league average. That should regress back towards the league average, and he won't give up as many runs. That's why the estimators like his ERA to be lower. So if you're just looking at top line results, Fott doesn't look like anything special, but he's actually been a really good starting pitcher this season. Like league average strikeouts, elite walk rate, and I love the matchup here. The Angels are really good against left-handed pitching. They're bottom 5, I want to say, bottom 10 at least against right-handed pitching. So really good matchup for a really good starting pitcher. I think he's way too cheap for this spot. Like I said, I was hoping to get him at like 10% ownership from the field and play roughly 30%. Now there's a chance that he's going to be 30% owned. So it makes the decision a little bit tougher. It's not as sneaky of a play as I thought it was going to be. So I still want to go overweight, I believe, just because I like the spot so much against the Angels, especially at the price point. It's going to be a lot more difficult to get significantly over the field's exposure.
I'm pretty confident in the fourth pitcher in this pool, and then I think that it gets tougher for number 5 and number 6. But I'm going to say, despite the good hitting weather, going up against a high strikeout Boston team, Aaron Nola is going to be in the pool.
Aaron Nola is in the pool, and that is just an ownership play. The strikeouts are down near league average for Aaron Nola. He's no longer the elite strikeout guy that he was. But Boston has plenty of strikeouts in the lineup. We might as well pull it up and break it down here. Let me just pull up some plate IQ. 1, 2,
It
3,
is a lot
4, 5,
of lefties in this lineup, and they're not like it's weird. It's not a consistent balanced lineup throughout. It's a lot of low strikeout guys and a lot of really high strikeout guys.
Correct. Yep, that's accurate. Yoshida being back in this lineup is obviously not ideal. You touched on the splits for Nola. Throughout his career, he's been handling lefties fine, but this season, his strikeouts to lefties are way down. 18% against lefties, 27% against righties. So all of the lefties in the lineup are not ideal. I just feel like Nola got off to a slow start this season. He's a better pitcher than what his season-long numbers say, and he's been kind of declining for a couple years now, so it's a little bit scary of an assumption. But I still feel like he's one of the better pitchers in baseball. The leash is really long. He's been doing this for a long time. I trust Nola. I need a pivot off of some of the ownership. Like, I can't just play Joe Ryan and Garrett Crochet in every lineup and expect to take down a tournament. There's just way too much ownership congregated around those two. So I do have some sprinkles of Aaron Nola. I'm not in love with the spot because of the lefties, like you said. The lefties actually scare me more than the ballpark. It is worth noting that Boston is probably the most friendly hitter for park for right-handed power. It's actually not that great of a park for left-handed power. The right center gap is extremely long. It's better. It's awesome for triples, but it's not great for left-handed home runs. So that's an interesting
especially
note.
Because the wind is blowing directly at the monster today too.
Yeah, like the right-handers are terrifying in this game with the weather and the short wall in left field, obviously, but I don't know. It's an ownership play on Nola. We have him at 16% compared to 42% for Crochet and almost 50% for Joe Ryan. I think Nola can outscore one of those guys more often than a third of the time or something like that. So I'll be slightly overweight on Aaron Nola, not a huge stance. I'm not playing 40% or anything, but I'll be in that 25 to 30% range on Nola.
I'm going to stick in the same game for my next pick. I feel like this is very similar to the Nick Pivetta one we talked about the other night. Super tough matchup, but the strikeout upside with a pitcher is there. Strikeout upside with Tanner Houck is there. He's got a better than 30% strikeout rate to right-handed bats, and he gets 4 of them tonight. The lefties are the ones we are worried about, but hopefully the power shouldn't be quite as bad with the wind blowing the other way and the park benefiting the righties better. It's a very similar story to Nola. But the pitcher has been a lot better, but the matchup is also a lot tougher. I think due to upside, Tanner Houck has got to be in your pool.
You nailed it. I thought this might be the one that you missed. Tanner Houck is a really good pitcher. He has an elite ground ball rate. The strikeout rate is around 25%. And I've talked about this a couple of times already. I think there's some more upside in the strikeout rate for Tanner Houck. He faced the same opponent in back-to-back starts on 3 different occasions already this season. That's just it's a tough spot for a starting pitcher to do that. His strikeouts of late have been incredible. So I'm with you. I'm chasing strikeout upside here. I don't love the matchup. Philly is one of the best offenses in baseball. They don't strike out a ton either. It's nice to see Sosa in that lineup. He's up around 30%. Schwarber's around 30%. And Stubbs over Real Muto is definitely an upgrade as well, with Real Muto hitting the IL. But everybody else in the lineup is 20% or below from a strikeout rate against right-handed pitchers this season. So it's not an easy spot. I'm basically just banking on the talent here of Tanner Houck. I think the ground balls will keep him out of trouble. Is there going to be enough swing and miss for him to pay off his $8,800 price tag? I'm not sure, but I'm going to take some shots and hope that he's just good enough to rack up enough strikeouts to where maybe Ryan has an off strikeout game. He gives up a home run or two, and Houck can go clean through 6 innings and get 7 strikeouts. Like, I don't know that it's a great 9 or 10 strikeout spot for Houck, but I think he can match, just like I said with Nola, I think he can match Ryan more than he can at a higher rate than what he is owned. So I'm over the field on Tanner Houck.
I know Garrett Crochet will be one of my 2 pitchers in my single entry today. The other one will be Ryan, Fott, or Houck, and I don't know which one yet. I'm thinking I will likely figure out a stack that I really want to play today, and whichever of those 3 pitchers I have enough for, I will play. Is kind of the way I'm looking at this one today. The 6th one is tough. I don't think you're going with Michael Lorenzen. I don't think you're going with Griffin Canning or Medina or Munoz, any of these cheap guys. I think it's dependent on, do you want 15 points today and you're playing some Luis Severino? Or do you want 20 or -2 and you're playing Emerson Hancock? That's the question today. Are you going with a nice matchup against the White Sox with a very unproven pitcher? Or are you going with a still nice matchup against Miami, but some good hitting weather, ballpark upgrade for Miami? I don't know. I still think you're going Severino over Hancock. My last guess is Severino.
Your thought process was right on. It is Hancock.
Yeah.
If you were in the Squad Reds Discord channel, you might have had some inclination here on which way I'm going, because Luis Severino
asked me today, who said, like, hey, do you want to lead the next squad ride? And I said, thank you for thinking of me, but my goodness, I don't even have time to breathe today. So please pass it on to somebody else.
Nice. Well, the squad ride today is Luis Severino under 5.5 strikeouts. So that could have been a little bit of a hint for you. Severino has just gotten lucky. His BABIP on the season is 246. He has a 7.7% home run to fly ball rate. For his career coming into this, and he was horrible last season, but there were times in Severino's career where he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. Despite that, he has a 290 BABIP and a 14.6% home run to fly ball in his career. I think there's some regression coming. His strikeouts are way down from where they were in his career. He's under 20% this season, and the swinging strikes are at 8.7%. I don't think there's any strikeout upside in this matchup against Miami. Miami is a terrible offense, but they still make plenty of contact. 22.1% strikeout rate versus right-handed pitching this season. That's the 14th best rate in baseball. So nothing special, but like we're talking, this is a bottom 2 or 3 offense, and their strikeout rate is middle of the road against righties. So I'm struggling to see the upside for Severino here. I like the matchup for Hancock much better. We've talked at times about the White Sox not being a huge strikeout team this season. That's not the case any longer. With Tommy Pham on the IL, Eloy Jimenez on the IL, that takes out 2 lower strikeout bats. Luis Robert has struck out at an enormous clip this season. I do expect that to regress a little bit here. But then you have Andrew Vaughn, who's above average. In strike, he's striking out at 25.5%. Paul DeYoung is over 30%. Lennon Sosa up at 28%. Zach DeLoach and Corey Lee both strike out a ton as well. So there's a lot of strikeouts in this White Sox lineup, and they're also terrible. I have the White Sox and Marlins as basically roughly even offenses, but the White Sox just strike out at a much, much higher rate. Emerson Hancock is probably not the strikeout pitcher that Severino is, even in this decreased strikeout state. But I think that he can get it done here against the White Sox. His strikeout rate is only 15% on the season. Maybe that's where he's going to land. I think he's a little bit more talented than that, and he just hasn't figured it out. I will take a shot on a young pitcher in a better strikeout matchup, more so than a Luis Severino, who has gotten pretty lucky this season from what I'm seeing.
I should have known. You are a guy who likes upside. You don't want that 15 points. You want upside. I should have known. That was a blunder on my end. Let's take a peek here at the FanDuel at the FanDuel pitching pool. Who would you be your if you were playing cash today? If you were playing single entry today over there, who would you be wanting to go with? Because the pricing is quite a bit different. Houck, Nola, Ryan, Crochet, all these guys are over 10K. Crochet's all the way up to 11. And then you got guys like Taj Bradley on this slate because it starts a little bit earlier. You got Justin Steele on this slate. You got Brendan Pfaadt, much cheaper. You got Emerson Hancock all the way down at 7,100. The price difference are very heavy here. So what are you doing over on FanDuel?
Yeah, so I have a little bit different strategy than I typically play on DK. The reason I play most of my volume on DK is because I feel like the SP2 is part of where I find my edge. I think identifying pitchers who aren't necessarily in the best spots but can put up a great performance is kind of where my edge is at. So I prefer playing on DK. FanDuel, I think you want the more safety and upside. So Crochet and Ryan, easily still the top two, even though they're a little bit more expensive. Tanner Houck and Aaron Nola being right there. So a guy like Tanner Houck is not as valuable on FanDuel as he is on DraftKings because the quality start is in play. And I think that like Joe Ryan has a much better chance at a quality start than Tanner Houck does today. So I would not feel the need to be overweight on Tanner Houck on FanDuel like I am on DraftKings. Nola has that safety where he could easily go 6 innings. So he's a little bit tougher of a case. I do worry about the strikeouts being on the same level as Ryan and Crochet. So I don't know that I would try to get overweight on Nola and Houck on FanDuel like I am on DraftKings. I would much rather go down to somebody like Taj Bradley, who I think has incredible upside in a great pitcher's park against a Cubs offense that strikes out a good amount. Justin Steele, I would be totally fine with. It's been a rough go for Justin Steele so far this season. He's been battered by injuries that derailed him early in the season. There was a rain game in there where he had to pitch through rain for 5-6 innings. There's just been something with it. Feels like every single start for Steele this season. I'm a Cubs fan. I watch Justin Steele every time he pitches. He is an elite pitcher. Like he only throws 2 pitches, but they're 2 elite pitches. The run he gets on his fastball is outstanding. He has an awesome cutter slider combo hybrid thing that he throws a ton as well. Tampa Bay strikes out a bunch versus left-handed pitching. So I would probably be skipping the Nola Houck range and going down to Steele and Bradley, and Pfaadt is right there with those guys as well. So I think going overweight on the 3 guys in the 8K range over trying to get overweight on somebody like Nola and Houck would be my FanDuel strategy. The Ryan Crochet conversation, it's still going to be Crochet for me, even though he's more expensive than Ryan here. I'm a sucker for strikeouts, and Crochet I think has higher strikeout upside. So
I was gonna say too, I don't like.
It's hard to say.
I was gonna say like I would worry. Crochet typically doesn't throw a ton of pitches. Is he gonna get that quality start? he's so efficient that he's still gotten a quality start in 6 of his last 7 starts, even though he's not a guy that goes over 100 pitches. So that kind of kiboshed that thought. And so I think Ryan and Crochet, if I have the $200, I would probably go Crochet. And if I don't, then yeah, Joe Ryan, I'm perfectly fine with too. But if I'm playing a lot of lineups, especially or even just a few, but if I'm playing tournaments, I think the 7 to 8K range of Justin Steele, Taj Bradley, Brandon Pfaadt, and then throw in Emerson Hancock all the way down at 7,100. Those would be the guys that I'd be looking to get heavily overweight on, because Bradley's the only one projecting for double-digit ownership of that group right now. Let's pivot to Yahoo. We're doing things. We're taking it. We got some Yahoo listeners, viewers right now. So we'll take a peek at that. Usually it's fairly close in comparison to FanDuel. But Joe Ryan is priced cheaper than Aaron Nola and Tanner Houck over there. It's not a big difference, but we see a lot of ownership going to Garrett Crochet, a lot of ownership going to Joe Ryan. I believe you played 2 pitchers on Yahoo. Kirk D, let me know on chat. Yeah, you played 2 pitchers in Yahoo, right? Pfaadt is not as much of a salary saver in comparison to those other guys. He's only $9 cheaper than Joe Ryan. And you don't have as many. Do you not have Emerson Hancock on Yahoo today? It's kind of what it looks like. There's no Hancock.
Yep, and no Steele and Bradley either. So this is a
Bradley,
tough slate.
yeah. It is,
tough
not really easy to go cheap there. I would maybe be okay with taking some shots on tournaments on some of the cheap guys, because they're so much cheaper. Like Michael Grove actually would probably be my favorite option as a cheap tournament option, just because he's probably going to be a long relief guy. And so from a cash setting, I guess you're for sure going Joe Ryan, and then it's either Crochet or Pfaadt. Probably Crochet, since it's not that much of a since it's not that big of a salary difference, and then you can have to save some bats. But we also got Kirk D's in the chat, so maybe he can help us out and say who he would play as his kind of top 2 pitchers in a single entry and or cash game format over there. Give us a synopsis, a summary, a roundup of what you want to do at pitching today for those who are just tuning in.
Just a couple real quick thoughts on Yahoo. I think I would be more apt to go way overweight on Crochet and Ryan on Yahoo, just because the pricing is not as favorable. You don't get as big of a discount on Pfaadt. Bradley and Steele are not in the pool. Even Severino is close. Like I'd probably just be locking in Ryan and Crochet. There are some cheap hitters on Yahoo to make that work, way underpriced. Shohei Ohtani is $18 in salary, which is just absurd. I tagged some salary savers over there. That's why I knew that these prices were out there. Corbin Carroll is starting to heat up. He has an awesome matchup today. He's only $16. So I think just given those 2 under prices, I'd probably be locking in Crochet and Ryan, even in tournaments, even at this ownership. Like that's where I'd be going on Yahoo.
Kirk D's in the chat says he has not looked fully at it yet, but just like first thoughts, that is what he is thinking as well. And I'm learning that MLB is the one sport that Yahoo does not have kind of a mimicked pricing to FanDuel. But the pitching is pretty darn close to the exact same as it is on FanDuel today, with Crochet being the most expensive, those top 4 being way up there. And then Grove actually being the cheapest one on both of theirs today that you could take a look at.
As he should.
Now
be.
give me that
price
summary.
On him is
yeah, it makes no sense.
Crazy on Grove. All right. The very 2 clear top pitchers on the slate are obvious. It's Garrett Crochet is slightly ahead of Joe Ryan for me, but they're easily 1A and 1B on the slate. I think the pricing on Aaron Nola and Tanner Houck, in addition to the ownership discount that you get on them, makes them worthy pivots. And I will try to be overweight on both of them. Luis Severino is going to be my fade here. Good matchup against Miami, but I think he's been a little bit lucky this season, and I don't see the strikeout upside in the matchup. Brandon Pfaadt is my favorite cheaper pitcher in the mid-range. I think he's a better pitcher than what his results show this year. and he has an awesome matchup here against an Angels team that really struggles with right-handed pitching. Emerson Hancock would be my pivot off of Fott if you're looking for something else in the mid-range. Love the matchup against the White Sox. Talented young pitcher who has been a little below average in the majors, but he has one of the best matchups in baseball today. So I am fine taking some shots on Hancock.
I like it. And we got some new people popping into chat now. There was one question I wanted to ask you before we transferred over to talking about some offenses, and my cat distracted me. I don't remember what it is. This is the problem with having a cat that walks in front of you and ADHD at the same time. But I guess we can start looking at some stacks. We can start looking at some game-by-game stuff, and hopefully I will be able to think of what it was along the way. Oh, yeah, there it was. We got 75 likes. The first Spidey Bomb and Icer Fleister was supposed to be at 50. So we got those first ones ready for you. Second ones are coming at 100 likes. So keep getting those likes up. And we got more of them coming for you. Keith, who do you got today as the very first Icer Fleister on the board?
I need to have a little strategy here so I don't get
I let you go first because I took all of yours. I took all of your picks on the morning grind, and actually shout out to both of us because in that game, Giancarlo Stanton and Gleyber Torres both hit home runs. Yep. So we were both right. But I'm letting you go first here so that I don't steal yours.
All right. I am going to go with Jock Peterson as my first one. Love the matchup here against Griffin Canning, who's been just really bad against lefties this season.
You and I are fairly in step because Jock Peterson was absolutely considered, but I'm going to go with his teammate, giving us our own versions of some knockers here. And the first Spidey Bum is Ketel Marte. Odds as high as plus 550. You can get him for plus 520 on FanDuel. Spidey Bum number one, Ketel Marte. And we got more home run picks coming at 100 likes. And then even I think we could get you a third set at 125. So let's keep getting these likes way up here. Let's start going game by game. First one on the DK slate, we got Philadelphia at Boston. Two of the top pitchers on the slate, but also the best hitting environment on the slate. We got warm weather. We got wind blowing out. Let's talk about Philly first. I would rather target Nola than Houck, but I would also way rather play Philly than Boston. Harper and Schwarber are definitely the two I would want to go with as a mini stack the most. And that would probably be the extent of what I'd want to do with them. I guess they're cheap enough. You could just add Castellanos, Sosa, and Dahl, and then all of a sudden it's a full stack. Where would you rank Philadelphia among the top offenses on the slate?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in stacking them. Houck has that outstanding ground ball rate, like I mentioned. His walks have been under control. I think it's just Harper and Schwarber as one-offs for me. Stott's a little bit overpriced. Castellanos has not been great this season. He's always worse against righties. Sosa is cheap enough where I wouldn't mind a mini stack if you wanted to pay up for Harper and Schwarber and include Sosa in there. I'd be fine with that. I guess Dahl is in that same mold as well. So those two cheap bats make the stack in play for me. They would be closer to the bottom than to the top for me, but somewhere in the middle. Like if we were doing 4 or 5 tiers, they'd probably be in the fourth tier, second tier from the bottom.
On the Boston side of things, I actually do really like Rafael Devers tonight and these lefties against Aaron Nola. Like a mini stack of Duran, Hamilton, and Devers, I don't mind whatsoever. Probably more apt to do that than a full stack, even though Yoshida is still really cheap. O'Neill is affordable. Valdez batting 6th instead of 2nd. Not as great, but still fine. Feel very similarly to them as I do Philadelphia. I like the mini stack better than a full stack, but closer to the mid-tier, bottom of the list. I'd maybe have them in because of the hitting weather in my 3rd tier as opposed to 4th. But who would you be more likely to stack, Boston or Philadelphia?
I think Boston is a full stack just because there's more cheaper options. Like there's Yoshida being 3,100 is he's a better hitter than that. They also have a ton of lefties, and we talked about Nola's strikeout rate versus lefties. So I think I would lean to Boston before Philly as a full stack. The mini stack, I do really like Harper and Schwarber, and then one of the other cheap lefties. So I probably like the Philly mini stack more, but the Boston full stack more. Hamilton's been outstanding at 3,400 and that's why he's getting moved up to the order. Valdez is certainly fine still, even though he's down to 6th. Yoshida being a little bit too cheap. Like there's enough value in here. You can get up to Devers pretty easily and then fill in around him.
Hamilton's been so good that I love just continuously playing him like I have been doing. I've been playing him even when he's been batting 8 or 9. I just wish he was like second base or something eligible as opposed to just short, because shortstop is such a strong position. At least on this slate, like Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt already played. And so that makes there to be a little bit less to contend with. And so I do like the idea of playing David Hamilton as a one-off or stacking him up with Devers, something like that, to get a little bit of Boston exposure today. I'd be more likely to play Boston than I am Philly on second thought. I thought originally I'd rather want to play Philly, but I like targeting Nola more than I like targeting Houck. And there are some nice cheap options here on Boston. So I actually would rather get to them in this spot. I think. What does the chat say about the game? We got Kirk D's confirming that Yahoo Cash today pairing is either Ryan and Severino or Ryan and Crochet. And then let's pivot over to the next game. We're still not quite at enough likes for the next Spidey Bomb and Fleister. We need 8 more. So hopefully we can get to those after this game. Keep smashing that like button. And we got Miami going up against the New York Mets. More very good hitting weather. Let's start with Miami. They only got a 3.5 total, but you talk about fading Severino. You think he's due for some negative regression. You don't like him today. Does that mean you're stacking up some Miami going up against them?
Not going that far. I don't mind some cheap one-offs. I don't mind Jazz as a one-off for one. I think Jazz is one of the top options on the slate. I really like the spot for Jazz. He just doesn't have enough talent around him for me to want to stack him up. I don't mind Josh Bell and Jesus Sanchez, and that would be my 3-man if I was looking for a Miami stack. Jazz, Josh Bell, Jesus Sanchez. They just don't have enough upside to want to target them for a full stack. I would be fine adding Berger and De La Cruz in there to make it a full stack. Severino's been better to righties for one. Berger has really struggled this season. There's big time power in there. But I don't know. Like, it's just, I don't think there's enough upside to make it my full stack of the slate. So I'd prefer it as a mini stack, and I prefer lefties for sure.
Let me try and persuade you a little bit here. I want to try and persuade you to give not just 1, but 2 to 3 full Miami stacks in your 40 lineups. Because here's my sales pitch to you. 1, low ownership. There is only one Miami player currently projecting for more than 10% ownership, and it's Jake Berger. Number 2, cheap. No player over 5K, only one over 4K, and it allows you to do the Joe Ryan and Garrett Crochet pairing. So it gives you some Ryan Crochet teams that not many other people will be doing today. Thirdly, so Berger has really struggled this year, but it's been more so actually against left-handed pitching, which is weird because we view him as a lefty masher, right? Shout out to Cardi. But he's actually been better against righties this year. 55.3% hard hit rate to righties. And if you look at this lineup, how many players do you think, if you will allow me to round 39.8 up to 40, how many players in this Miami lineup do you think have better than a 40% hard hit rate against right-handed pitching?
I will say 5.
8 out of 9. Wow. Tim Anderson is the only one with a hard hit rate to below 40%, and it's at 35.1. Nick Gordon's 39.8, but you look at the top half of this lineup. Chisholm's just under 50. De La Cruz is 49. Josh Bell's just under 50. Sanchez is at 68.4 in 168 at bats. A good sample size. And Jesus Sanchez is just absolutely smashing the ball. The only downside is these guys do hit a lot of ground balls, and Severino has been good this year at inducing them. but I think they are so cheap. I think the upside is there with them going into a park upgrade and the wind blowing out. I think the upside is there to warrant some Miami stacks so that you can double pay up at pitcher.
All right, you've swayed me into playing a couple. I'll give you 2 out of 40. That's full stack. I still question the upside. I do think Jazz and Sanchez are really strong. I'm fine. I will play enough of them. The full stack with the upside is my concern. What happened to Tim Anderson? Like, this guy used to hit 330, and now he strikes out 40% of the time. Like,
he got knocked out by Jose Ramirez
and has never been the same since. It's absolutely incredible. Poor guy.
On the other side of things, we got the Mets going up against Munoz on the other side. Now, the Mets are the team with the big total in this one. We have Minnesota as the only team on the slate with a total above 5, but the Mets are at 4.99 implied team total right now. They are also picking up the ownership to match, though. Lindor, Nimmo, Martinez are actually the highest, and then Torrens are the 4 highest owned guys on this team. Not Pete Alonso. So Pete Alonso is definitely my favorite play on this team. I want to play Pete Alonso every night. He should be $1,000 more expensive. What do you think about this Mets team, and where would they rank for you? Is this a top tier stack?
Yeah, this is a top tier stack because of the pitcher on the other side has serious issues with walks. Even in the minors, he had a ton of walks. I have no idea where his true strikeout ability is. He had some strikeout stuff in the low minors, and then it completely disappeared once he reached AA and AAA. But then it's been back now that he's been in the majors a little bit. So it's very odd what we're seeing with Roderick Munoz and his strikeout stuff. I still don't think he's very good. I think he's been a little bit lucky from a strikeout perspective his first couple starts in the big leagues. So I have a ton of interest in the Mets here. I love Pete Alonso. I love that call. Lindor, Nimmo are excellent. Even JD Martinez is starting to pick it up a little bit here recently. I like the cheap guys here too. Vientos has been really good in his call up, and McNeil is cheap enough and at a weaker position that I think he's playable as well. I don't think Jeff McNeil's good, but I would be willing to roster him in a stack. Even Bader, I think you could throw into that conversation as well. So I think there are enough ways to make your Met stack different that you can still play them with Crochet and Ryan. But I'm just as fine pivoting, like going Crochet and Nola or something like that, and pivoting off of one of the chalky pitchers, going to one of the other top tier pitchers and still playing Mets. I think that gets me different enough to where the Mets are still very much in play. They're one of my favorite stacks. They should have so much traffic on the bases with Munoz's walk rate and just the fact that I think his strikeouts are coming down too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The only thing that would potentially keep me away from these guys is the ownership, because they're projecting for pretty high right now, and I actually think they're going to be higher. I think the Mets are going to be higher owned than this on a small slate. With the wind blowing out, they got that nice total, and they've been hot. They've been playing hitting the ball really well lately. I must apologize to our guy Steve, because we got the Mets in the top tier, and he doesn't get to put the tiers up today. So he probably would have automatically put them in the top, but can't do that today. So shout out Steve. Let's there it is. He's got it ready in the background with the Mets already there. Next up, we got the Oakland Athletics with a 3.25 total going up against Joe Ryan. Look, I know we want to say we're trying to expand on time on this slate and like kill time, but I'm assuming in 40 lineups I guess look, maybe I shouldn't just skip past the Oakland Athletics, because even though the total's terrible, in 150 lineups, I would still have stacks because of how chalky Joe Ryan is. And we've seen on occasion Joe Ryan just not have it and get lit up. And so I'm curious though, if you have in 40 stacks any Oakland Athletics, just due to the fact that Ryan is going to be 50% owned.
So this is another mini stack situation for me, and I don't even like that as much as I just like trying to find the home runs against Joe Ryan. He can give up some home runs. I'm trying to look. His barrel rate on the season is 10.9%. That's way too high. he gets squared up quite a bit. So I am totally fine trying to find some home runs here. He gives up power to both sides of the plate. The barrel rate is actually a little bit reverse splitsy, as is the ISO. So he's giving up more power to righties. Which is not
Rooker and Langelier, if they touch the ball, it will be going out of the park.
Yes, I love those two guys as one-offs. I even like JJ Bleday and Tyler Soderstrom as one-offs as well. I don't think they completely beat up Joe Ryan, so I don't know that I want any full stacks. But if you want to pair two of them or three of them together and hope that you find a couple of home runs off Joe Ryan, I think that's completely viable on this slate. No full stacks for me, but quite a bit of exposure to Rooker and Langelier, if you will, and even Bleday and Soderstrom as well.
We're up to 111 likes, so that means we are only 14 away from Spidey Bomb number 3, and we got enough for number 2. Keith, I will again allow you to go first with the Fleister. Could Fleister number 2 potentially be an Oakland Athletic against Joe Ryan, or is that too ambitious?
No, we just talked about it. Now it's fallen in love as I was talking about it. It's Brent Rooker. Like you nailed my thought process right there. Exactly.
Plus 400 on FanDuel. What do you think his scores and odds projection to hit a FanDuel is, as like terms of what his odds should be?
Plus 325.
Plus 213.
Wow.
So you got the scores and odds hat on, and you are accidentally repping the projections perfectly on there as well. And I'm going to go with another one. This guy's plus 400 in terms of the odds, but you can get him for plus 560 on FanDuel. Jesus Sanchez, we just talked about him in the last game. 66% hard hit rate to righties this year with over 150 plate appearances. He's Spidey Bomb number 2, plus 560 over on FanDuel. I think there's going to be some good home run options on the other side of this one, though, too, because we have the red hot Minnesota Twins going up against Luis Medina, who does not strike anybody out, does not get any ground balls, and gets hit stupidly hard. And so where would you rank the Twins today in terms of your top stacks? I'm already saying the fact that Royce Lewis, you can find him for plus 350 on FanDuel. Look, that's a honorary Spidey Bomb today because it's obvious. He's
the guy homers every day. Why wouldn't he be?
Royce Lewis will be hitting another home run today against him. Who was the first Spidey Bomb? K-Town's Finest asks. It's the first Spidey Bomb was Ketel Marte, and the first Fleister was Jock Peterson. Second Fleister, Brent Rooker. Second Spidey Bomb. A dual one for you, Royce Lewis and Jesus Sanchez. We got another one for you when we are up over 125 likes. So keep smashing that like button. We got the Crunch Time crew coming in just over 20 minutes. Minnesota's currently coming in lower projected owned than the Mets. They're currently coming in lower projected owned than Arizona. And yet they have the higher total than both of them. I think Minnesota might be my top stack.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like what's not to love here? Luis Medina gives up power. He walks way too many guys, and Minnesota's fairly priced. I mean, outside of Royce Lewis, 4,500 is Jeffers. Everybody else is kind of in that 4K range. So I'm right there with you. I think the upside is tremendous here. Oakland's bullpen has been a lot better this year, but the pitching gets a downgrade going into Minnesota. This is a very attackable spot here for the Twins. The pinch hit stuff is somewhat concerning, so I'd be wary of a guy like Larnach. Kepler usually stays in there lefty-lefty, and that's the only other straight lefty in the lineup. A couple of switch hitters in there today, so sometimes we're worried about pinch hit risk. I don't think you have to really be all that concerned about it today. Outside of potentially Larnach, I haven't had a chance to peek at the bats projected pinch hit risk yet today, but I can do that in just a second here. But yeah, I love the Twins. I think they're too cheap. I think Medina is very hittable and he walks too many guys. So sign me up.
Yeah, I think Minnesota is going to be my top stack. And in addition to it, because we have 125 likes, guess what? Willie Castro plus 750 Spidey Bomb number 3 today. Do you have a third Fleister ready? It's okay if you don't. They're actually only at 123 likes. They didn't get enough. Give me 2 more likes, guys. Come on. Do you have another Fleister ready for the people? Or maybe do you want to wait till 150?
I can find one here real quick.
Plus 750 for Castro. You kidding me? Leading off?
Yeah, that's crazy. I will go. I'm not going to go super obvious. It's still pretty obvious. I'm going to go Freddie Freeman instead of Ohtani, but we're going to get to some Dodgers that we like for sure.
I like it. Twins are my top stack on the board. Mark it down. I love them. Next game, we got the LA Angels going up against Brendan Pfaadt and the Arizona Diamondbacks going up against Canning. Let's start with the Angels. Like you mentioned, this team is nowhere near as good against right-handed pitching as they are against lefties. Are you going with any like, hey, Pfaadt's going to get some ownership, so I'll play some Angels, or are they going to get the cut for you tonight?
They're going to get the cut for me. I believe in Brandon Pfaadt as a pitcher. He was a very high prospect coming up through the system. Took him a while to get his footing, but the underlying stuff says he's been very good this season. And the Angels just aren't good, especially against righties. Like some of these names that they're rolling out there, the Willie Calhouns, the Kevin Pillars, they've just been picked. Luis Guillorme, couldn't get that one out. They're like picked up off of other teams' scrap heaps, have bounced around the league. They're not that talented. So I don't have any interest. Like I'm fine if you want to try to find a lefty to hit a home run off of him, but who in this Angels lineup do you feel good about from the left side? There isn't really anyone. Shanwell's actually been better against lefties than he has righties. Calhoun hasn't hit for much power. Moniak hasn't hit for anything, and neither is Guillorme. So there's just not a lefty that I like to target in this lineup. If I was picking out a batter, assuming that do we have the lineup? Ohapi is back in there.
I have not seen. Oh yeah, we just got it. Shanuel, Rengifo, Ward, Pilar, Ohapi, Neto, Moniak, Adele, Stefanich.
Adele, lefty or righty rather, is a little bit interesting. At least he has some power. Like none of these other guys have power. Ohapi is the guy I was going to say. Taylor Ward is fine. He's probably my favorite of the bunch, but he's the most expensive too. I don't mind some Adele if you're looking for a one-off, but definitely no stacks for me.
Yeah, I agree. They're not going to be stacking them. Arizona, on the other hand, looking like one of the better stacks on the slate. Corbin Carroll picking up a ton of ownership. He started to hit the ball a little bit better. And then we got, of course, our 2 guys, Ketel Marte and Jock Peterson today. Where would you rank the Arizona stack among your top stacks tonight?
They'd probably be in that second tier, just behind the Twins and the Mets. They're very strong. I wish they had better or more lefties in the lineup. But I'm totally fine using some righties against Canning as well. Like Christian Walker, I think looks phenomenal. Gurriel hasn't been as strong against righties this season, but he was fine against them last year. McCarthy has a little bit of speed, not a ton of power, but at least he's got a little speed to add to this as well. But Carroll, Marte, Peterson are 3 of my favorite hitters on the slate. I agree with you. I think Carroll is finally starting to come around. It's been a real struggle for him, but he's been looking better here recently. Still, they're just a tier behind the top tier here today.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I would put them behind the Dodgers, 4th out of the Dodgers, the Twins. Who was the other top one that we talked about there? Sorry. The Mets. I would put Arizona 4th behind them as well. I do like them a lot more as a mini stack, but in terms of a full stack, I think I would drop Arizona 4th there. What do we got here in terms of any more lineups just coming out? We just got a Dodgers lineup. Betts, Ohtani. Sorry, my wife must be getting home. Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, Hernandez, Pages batting 5th. Hayward, Lux, Biggio, and Barnes. So no Will Smith for them today. And then I believe there was one other person missing in that projected lineup. No Will Smith. Maybe that's it in terms of big ones today.
Did DK ever end up adding Biggio? Do we know?
Let's check right now. I got it up. No Kevin Biggio.
All right.
Next up, well, I mean, hey, why not skip ahead since we're already talking about them? The Dodgers and the Rangers. The Rangers going up against the Grove in a little bit of a half bullpen game situation. He's probably not going to go very deep. The Dodgers going up against Lorenzen. Lorenzen actually hasn't been that bad this year, but it's still the Dodgers. Lorenzen's a low strikeout guy against the Dodgers. Now, he's been very reverse splitsy this year. There's no Will Smith. And so I actually think like Betts, Hernandez, Pages, very interesting way to stack this team up when you look at Shohei Ohtani as by far the highest owned Dodger today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind getting different with Dodger stacks ever. I don't know if I'm buying reverse splits from Michael Lorenzen. I'm just kind of like last season, he was a normal reverse splits pitcher. ISO and barrel rate both higher to lefties. I'd have to dig into the pitch mix a little bit more to see if that's sticky, but I didn't take the time to do it because honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just playing everybody on the Dodgers.
7% swinging strikes to an only 14% strikeout rate to righties this year. He's just not getting any of them out, and they're smoking the ball. Anybody who's not a ground ball guy just hammers it.
Yeah, so I think every Dodger in the lineup is in play except for Biggio because they won't allow us to play him. At least on DK. I think he is on Yahoo, actually. I'm not sure about FanDuel, but if I was able to play Biggio, I would. 1 through 9 is absolutely in play for me. The top guys are obviously incredible. Barnes is a little bit questionable, but everybody, at least the other 8 are in play. Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, Teoscar, love all of those guys. Lux has
Barnes
been
hitting a home run tonight. Just because you said that, Barnes is hitting a home run tonight.
Maybe. Do I have Dean Mush powers? We'll see.
Dean's not here. Somebody's got to do it, and I haven't mushed anybody. So that means Austin Barnes has to hit a home run tonight.
There you go. Gavin Lux has been a lot better here recently. So I'm like, he's been somebody I've been avoiding for quite some time now until like he just didn't look like he was getting it back after the injury, but he has looked better for the last couple of weeks. So I'm back on board Gavin Lux. Jason Hayward's been great against righties since joining the Dodgers. 218 ISO, no, 198 ISO since the beginning of last season, 218 ISO this season. Jason Hayward's too cheap for this spot. Andy Pages has been really good. Righty. So I like this. Give me like 3 studs and 2 cheapies, and it's pretty easy to make the Dodgers work, even with one of those elite pitchers.
It's also pretty easy to make the Dodgers work if you play Austin Barnes, as I'm plugging in a stack right now and still trying to play them while paying up for pitchers. What about Texas? Do you have any interest in Texas today going up against this bullpen game for the Dodgers?
They've had their struggles, and I know they haven't been healthy. They've got Seager back in the lineup now. Presumably, he played yesterday, so I assume he'll be back in there. Like Michael Grove doesn't scare me, but he's been pretty solid actually this season. They're expensive too. Like I don't have a ton of interest in Texas here, and it's really more the pricing. Like just because the guys I want to play are Seager, Adolis, and Simeon, and they're all over 5K. I don't mind some shots on Nate Lowe. I know he hasn't been great this year. I think he's a better hitter than what he's shown so far this season. Josh Smith has actually been really solid this season as well. So I don't mind some shots on those 2 guys, but I don't know that I need to full stack. Maybe a couple of mini stacks, but I'm not in love with Texas by any means.
Last game for us to cover. We skipped ahead to that one because we were already talking about the Dodgers, but we got the White Sox going up against Hancock and Seattle going up against Crochet. Even in 150, I don't think I'd be playing any Seattle. Maybe I would get to a couple full stacks in 150. You getting any of them in 40 lineups?
No stacks. Crochet has just been too good. The strikeouts are real rally killers. Just don't like picking on high strikeout pitchers, similar to how I don't like picking on ground ball pitchers. I do think it's very viable to try to find a home run against him if you're fading him in any given lineup. I would say Mitch Garver is probably my favorite now with Raleigh out of the lineup. Man, this is a pretty weak Seattle lineup, honestly. Crochet was already my highest owned, but I think we got a boost here with this Seattle lineup. There's not much to like outside of that. Haniger has not been great this season against lefties. He's been better righty-righty. Julio has had his struggles. Certainly, you can always play him. I would not be surprised if he started going on a tear any day now. Crawford has been fine lefty, but like none of it is exciting to me really. So Garver's my favorite. Dylan Moore is in the conversation. He's actually had surprisingly good power against lefties this season and even last season. So I was underrating Dylan Moore, looking into him a little bit more. Yeah. I'd be fine with any of those guys as one-offs chasing a home run, but I don't want to stack against Crochet.
I think I'm playing Austin Barnes today. I'm building my single entry lineup as we talk, and like I'll probably get pinch hit for at some point, and then they can just put Will Smith in later. You never know. But if it doesn't happen, like just $2,300, I want to play Garrett Crochet, and I want to play like Royce Lewis and Mookie Betts. Those are the two expensive guys I want to pay up for today. And the only way to make that happen is if I'm playing some cheapies. And I think Austin Barnes and Austin Martin for Minnesota might be going double Austin mode today to make it happen. What about the White Sox against Hancock? You brought up you like playing Hancock today. Luis Robert has been red hot. You going to play any White Sox going up against Emerson Hancock?
It's not that I'm afraid of Emerson Hancock. It's that I don't think there are any good hitters in the White Sox lineup outside of maybe Luis Robert and Gavin Sheets. DeYoung has some power, but he also has a strikeout rate above 30%. I don't love a stack here at all. And Hancock has been below average so far in the majors. I think he does have potential. But if we're just looking at his body of work, he's an attackable pitcher. I don't like the White Sox lineup at all. Robert's fine as a one-off. Sheets is fine as a one-off. If you want to pair those two together, I'd be fine with that. Don't have much interest outside of that.
It looks like I'm playing Tanner Houck as my SP2 today. This is fun. I wanted to get Jesus Sanchez in my lineup. I couldn't fit him, so that's disappointing. But I got my single entry lineup locked in with some Dodgers, a little Houck, a little Crochet, all guys that we talked about liking today on the podcast, not on the podcast, on the show. We got crunch time coming in here in about 5 to 10 minutes. Keith, why don't you give me your top 5 stacks on the slate, and I will do the same. And then we'll go back and we'll talk a little bit of pitching here before, in case anybody tuned in late.
All right, sounds good. So I think I have a pretty clear top 3, I would say, on the slate. I'm going to go Twins slightly ahead of Dodgers just for price. I'd have Dodgers second. Mets would be rounding out the top tier for me. Diamondbacks very clearly a 4th in the stack rankings. And for my 5th, I will go to give me Boston as my 5th stack just for pricing over Philly.
Exact same top 4. Minnesota 1 for me, Dodgers 2, Mets 3, Diamondbacks 4. Number 5 for me is Miami. They are really cheap and they allow you to get to a double spend up at pitcher today. They're also low owned. So I think they got some upside against Severino. If they can get the ball off the ground, it's going to be hit hard. So I don't mind taking some shots there. Torn on Jock Peterson or Kepler in a FanDuel GPP, assuming it's just a straight one-off. Who you got, Jock or Kepler?
They're both great. I would like them a ton today, each of them. If I was a one-off, I think I would go Jock, just hunting that 2 home run game. I think that's more likely from Jock.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad call whatsoever. Give me a little bit of a rundown at pitcher for those who turned out late. Who would be your cash pairing? And then who is your favorite in tournaments?
In cash, I think I just go. There's 2 very clear top pitchers on the slate. It's Joe Ryan and Garrett Crochet. I think I would just pair those 2 in cash and figure it out with the bats after that. They both have outstanding matchups. Crochet for the strikeouts against Seattle. Joe Ryan just also strikeouts against Oakland. Also not a fantastic offense. I think there are 2 interesting pitchers as pivots right below that in Aaron Nola and Tanner Houck. I will be overweight on both of them. I'm fading Severino in the mid-range. I think it's a fair enough price. It's a solid enough matchup, but I think there's some regression coming. Some of the underlying stats, his BABIP and his home run fly ball rate in particular, are a little bit lower, quite a bit lower than his career averages, actually. I love Brandon Pfaadt in the mid-range. He is better than his top-line results this season. Strikeouts have been above league average. Walks have been elite. xERA and Sierra both significantly lower than his ERA. And I think Emerson Hancock is a fine pivot in the mid-range there as well against the White Sox. Awesome matchup for him. Decently rated prospect who hasn't really found his footing yet in the majors, but I think there's some talent there. Wouldn't surprise me if he figured it out against the White Sox today.
Going through here position by position, and I'm looking at it to see how easy it would be to play Ryan and Crochet in cash together. And I think you do it. I think you do it because it leaves you just about like just under 4K per position. You use a cheap catcher like Torrens. It's pretty easy to make it work all the way across the lineup. You're sacrificing Royce Lewis. It means if you're double spending up, you probably don't get Royce Lewis there. But I went through all the infields playing my favorite point per dollar plays at the position. I have 4K and $33 remaining for each of my 3 outfielder positions, knowing in the outfield there's good mid-range plays like Carroll, Nimmo, Buxton, Larnack, Jock Peterson, and then cheapies that we like Jesus Sanchez, Andy Pajes. I think it's easy enough to do that. I would personally roll with the Joe Ryan and Garrett Crochet route in cash. If you don't like that, you say, I need Royce Lewis. I'm not playing Royce Lewis in cash. Then I think Tanner Houck is the SB2 you go with. And I would put Garrett Crochet above Joe Ryan, even though the ownership's a little bit higher on Ryan. I think raw points, Crochet is better today because 1, Ryan hasn't quite been as good, but 2, that lineup for Seattle is just not very good today at all. So I'm all aboard the Crochet train.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make too. I think it was really close before Seattle released their lineup. I don't think it's all that close anymore with that Seattle lineup that came out. It's clearly Crochet over Ryan.
Chip the Rip 23 says, just joining, boys. Who is hitting home runs today? We gave 4 Spidey bombs, and they were speaking of Royce Lewis, Willie Castro. I should have written these down. Jesus Sanchez and Ketel Marte were my 4 Spidey bombs. Who are the 3 Flysters? And feel free to give a 4th if you want.
Jock Peterson, Brent Rooker, Freddie Freeman, and I don't have a 4th lined up here. I might be able to get one for you in short order here. Just trying to think. We haven't won any Mets yet. Give me Pete Alonso. He's always good for one.
I like that as well. Pete Alonso would probably be the guy I'd throw in cash today for first baseman on DraftKings too. He is as high as plus 425 some places, plus 370 on DraftKings. So good bet with the wind blowing out. And Keith, I gotta say, it's a 6-game slate, and we didn't even have to filibuster. Like, we crushed that.
Absolutely, man. The format worked out really well. Nice, smooth flow. Great piloting the ship from the host. So awesome stuff, man.
And we might as well. We've killed enough time. We stretched it out enough. So let's bring the Crunch Time crew in. What's good, gentlemen? Will, it's good to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in a long time.
I have not. Where are my Saturday shows? RG, I don't have any Saturday shows. So the TMT, the TWT weekends have not been coming in hot. Good afternoon, everybody. Kevin Roth, ladies and gentlemen.
Roth and Taylor, nice to see you guys, but it's only been a couple hours, so I'm not quite as excited.
We did. Yeah, we literally just saw you a little bit ago. Heard some of your analysis, though. Good stuff, as always, and we appreciate you guys jumping on. I just read Kirkwood talking shit in the chat. I'm sure you guys saw
knew
that.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I just like it stopped me mid-sentence. I read that, and I was just like, it's not going.
Not only is Kirkwood, and look, I'm part of the beta in this, so I'm not talking trash because that's my guy. But not only is he coming for your neck with Weather Edge, giving us the dew point model in beta coming, potentially taking down Weather Edge.
Yeah.
But he's talking trash about the Celtics and the Mavs too.
It's pretty rough. I don't know if you caught my earlier crunch time, Kirkwood, but there were F-bombs dropped. It was not a good scene. I full on ranted. I let it all out. I felt a little better after that. But we're still going to come back. We got 4 in a row in us. Mavs and 7, baby. Mavs and 7. Let's go.
This is the thing.
Fire Money
So
says
sad.
Roth should be happy he can't place bets in Texas.
Yeah, I'd be down a lot of money if I could, because I'd keep firing on those Mavs, and it wouldn't be going all that great. I'll tell you that.
Well, I think it's all you guys from here on out. I think we've spent enough time talking about only 6 games. It's time to pass it along to the 3 of you.
Very good. I like it. Good stuff as always, gentlemen. Have a good one. See ya. Yeah, that worked. Look at that. Hey, welcome to it, ladies and gents. And with that, we are now into crunch time, joined by 2 of the sharpest minds in the biz. We got the Chief in the house. What up, Chief?
Not much, man. Doing good. Glad to come on with you. Rob, I feel like we've had this discussion, but I want to make sure we've had the discussion.
Let's hear it.
Are you as into WNBA as you are the NBA?
No.
Or the
I mean,
WNBA
no.
just kind of like, yeah.
No.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not sure I've ever watched a single WNBA game. And I might now with the Caitlin Clark effect. I might, but not really. I'm not against it. I got nothing against it,
Okay.
but I don't. Yeah. No. The answer
No,
is no.
I was just wondering. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you. I was just wondering. I didn't know if you were like huge basketball fan or more NBA. Because some people aren't NBA fans; they're college basketball fans.
So that's true. I'm not a college basketball fan. I don't do college basketball. I am NBA and like uniquely NBA
Understood.
fan. That is a good
Understood.
distinction
Yeah.
factor. That's true. We got Taylor in the house as well.
Yeah.
What up, Taylor? How are you? Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. It's been a whole 4 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that. Probably more than that. I don't know. That was bad math.
4 or 5 hours,
Yeah,
something
glad to
like
be
that.
back. This
good to have
a
you
little
back.
better than the early one. So yeah.
Well, you know what really got my goat is that we had a couple great hitting weather spots and some pretty good teams in those spots, and they really dropped the ball for me. Like I thought the Yankees would have roughly 18 home runs, and I think there was 1 home run hit in that whole game. So I didn't like that.
Yeah, it was not a very entertaining slate. Cardinals game didn't really have much in terms of offense either. So on to the night slate, Roth. On to
Sometimes I wonder if there's more to baseball than just weather. That can't be true, but sometimes I think it may be. I don't know. Yeah, probably not. It's probably all just weather. That's all that matters. Hey, we got to dive into this slate. One important note about the slate is that there is no weather concerns. We do have a couple spots where the winds are quite helpful. I particularly like New York. So we've got winds blowing out for the Mets game over 15 miles per hour. You've got winds blowing out to left towards the Monster in Fenway at about 10 to 15. And then even in Minnesota, it's warm. Winds are blowing out. It's another slate with good hitting weather, just like it was this afternoon. I just hope that teams, you see, in order for the hitting weather to help, you need to hit the ball in the air. And if you hit it in the air, then the weather can help. But if you don't do that, it doesn't help at all. And that's it. I'm done. That's my whole spiel. So Taylor, I'm going to toss it to you and you can walk me through whether you want to dive into pitchers or the slate in general.
Yeah, so pitching is okay tonight. Out there, I think the obvious chalk, especially on DK, is going to be Joe Ryan and Garrett Crochet. Both in the mid-9s. Crochet gets the matchup at Seattle, so he gets a park upgrade. Good weather, I think, relative to other games in Seattle tonight. And the Mariners have been a very high strikeout lineup the whole season. He's been fantastic. Qualms with that. Joe Ryan gets the A's at home. That's a more hitter-friendly weather game, I think. But Oakland's still not a very menacing lineup. Joe Ryan, not quite as good necessarily as Crochet in terms of strikeouts, but the matchup's safe enough. I think he's good chalk also. Outside of that, it's pretty wide open. Guys like Aaron Nola, Luis Severino, Brandon Pfaadt, Tanner Houck are all good pitchers. None of them have ideal spots. I guess the best matchup would be Pfaadt against the Angels at home. Bad offense, park is okay, not as hitter friendly as it used to be. Fott is just decent, and he's cheap. So the Angels against righties are not as imposing as they have been against lefties. So I think he's reasonable enough. Severino, comparable option, a little more expensive, but gets the Marlins at home. A high strikeout offense, not a high strikeout pitcher anymore, but he's affordable. Miami's not imposing either. Pretty low run total for them, I think, even in a kind of hitter-friendly weather game. And the Nola Houck thing is going to be interesting. Both are in play, but the Red Sox at Fenway, it's not a very great lineup either, but the ballpark is hitter-friendly, probably the most hitter-friendly on the slate.
With
Houck so a decent offense. The Phillies are a little watered down. No Real Budo, no Trey Turner, guys like that. But he's not without risk either. And Houck is pushing 9K on DK. So interested to see where the ownership comes in on Nola and Houck in that game. But I think the core is going to be obviously Ryan and Crochet, and then a dusting of guys like Severino, Nola, Fott, and Houck.
So after Ryan and Crochet, your third dude, I'm getting the feeling, is my boy PFAT.
Yeah, I think just because he's cheaper than the Nola Houck duo, and the Angels, like I said, are not a good lineup. So Fott's probably your number 3 option tonight, all things considered.
Okay. All right, well, let's keep that in mind as we kick it over to Chief. Chief, as you kind of tick down your 1, 2, 3, or maybe you just want to put them in groupings, where are you going in tournaments as far as where your ownership is?
Well, ironically, I'm probably going to be much closer in line to cash ownership percentages today than I would be in my usual tournament percentages because of how the pitching disparity is. Like Ryan and Crochet are like the clear 2, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're building tournament lineups today, 1 through 150, if I'm building one lineup, I'm using Ryan and Crochet. If I'm building 3, it's probably Ryan and Crochet. If I start getting into like 5, 10, 15, 20, then I probably start doing some Ryan Fott, Crochet Fott, something like that. If I get up to about 15 to 20, at that point, I probably start introducing Nola and Houck, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And then if I'm at 150, then my full pool is very trimmed today. Ryan, Crochet, Nola, Houck, Severino, Fat. That's it. I'm not playing anybody else.
So I'm looking at ownership on like Ryan and Crochet, 45 to 50%. You're going to be over those numbers, you think?
Oh, yeah. Pushing 60% on both.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And then again, Fott is my boy P-Fat. He's your third highest owned. So we're all essentially in agreement here?
Yeah, but when it comes to Nola and Houck, I'm still well above the field because my pitching pool is so tight. So I'm pushing 25-ish on both of those guys. But and let me just say, I don't think they're going to set the world on fire. This is really just in case they do, I'm going to have more than the field. But Nola hasn't really. He's shown some upside this season, but his K rates compared to last season are much lower. And Tanner Houck's been actually much better this season, but he's still not elite yet. He's a good pitcher, not elite. I think both of those guys end up around the same number. And Roth, I know you talked about the weather in that game. Slightly watered down Philly lineup. I think Houck's fine, all things considered.
Okay, very good. Well, let's flip the script and talk about some of the stacks and some of the bats. So, Chief, I'll let you lead us off there. Who are you stacking up? Is there a chalky stack tonight?
Well, I mean, I almost feel like the chalky stack is going to end up being the Mets. I didn't think it was going to be the Mets earlier today. I thought some of that ownership might come down, but the top of this Mets order looks like they're going to be getting plenty of ownership, and the Dodgers aren't getting nearly as much as I thought, and I think that's more so because of price. Taylor, I'm going to kick this to Taylor to just get your opinion, Taylor. I think because when we lost Castillo, I think people committed to Crochet and Ryan because they're just clearing away the best 2 pitchers, and I think that's pulled the Dodgers ownership back some. That's just my read. Taylor, what do you think about that?
because it's hard to, you can't really pay up for all the good Dodgers you want and Ryan and Crochet. So
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. The Mets are generally cheaper. Matchup against Munoz is killing. The walk for the out of control for him. Strikeouts seem due to regress. So I get it. Arizona is another one that looks decently popular against Griffin Canning. They've gotten cheaper than they were earlier in the season. Canning has just been kind of mediocre the whole year. Even if he might be better than that, it's still a decent spot for them. Minnesota, I think, actually has the highest total at home against Luis Medina. And Roth mentioned the good hitting weather. Yeah.
For what it's worth.
The thing about Twins is that they do seem to pinch it more frequently than other teams, so there's some risk there with some of those hitters. But, if they score 8 runs in the first inning and stuff, and it doesn't really matter at that point. So, yeah, I don't really think there's an obvious chalk stack. Like the Mets are going to be popular. The Twins, maybe. The Diamondbacks likely will be. You make a case for pretty much anybody, though. Like if you're looking at leverage, I think the Angels are not a horrible stack against Fott, assuming Fott is going to be somewhat owned on DK. Teams like Texas against a bullpen game isn't the worst thing in the world. And both sides of the Philly-Boston game, like it's the best hitters part slate. Phillies at least are a somewhat talented offense, even if they are a bit injured. So there are a lot of ways to go, and I don't think the ownership's really going to coalesce around any one team.
Okay. And so I guess that was my next question is if we're all kind of pooled up with the pitchers, right? You got 2 pitchers up top, and then all of us are going, or at least a lot of people are going with maybe some of the cheaper, more affordable stacks. Chief, is this ownership that you need to dodge? Like if you go Crochet and what was the other guy, Ryan, and then Mets, are you just like, well, that's what everyone's doing, and now you're just tying with a bunch of people?
Yeah. Well, I think you could do it 2 ways, Rob. I like these kind of discussions. With small plates, we can do this. So I think there's multiple ways, but I think primarily there's 2. I think everybody's going to be playing Ryan and Crochet, and I think that's the right call. So let me just say that. Like, I don't think you need to get overly cute at pitcher. Mm-hmm. But if you want to play the Mets, then in some of these stacks, you better get creative. You better leave off Lindor, leave off Nemo, leave off Peter in one of them and build something different. Like maybe build, something with like Marte, McNeil, Bader, Lindor. So you kind of got this mini wraparound, something like that. I think that's the way to get different with some of the popular stats. Now, let me just say this. Because this Dodgers ownership has come down, I'm much more interested in getting in Mookie Ohtani and Freddie, and just playing.
You can't do that with your pitchers, though, right?
Yes, you can. You just got to play. You got to play You got to play the cheap guy. You're gonna have to play Brandon Pfaadt and one of the other ones, and then building with that. Because look, everybody at the bottom of this lineup, Hayward, Lux, Vaughn, those guys are all cheap. Hayes, those are all the cheap guys. So because the ownership has come down on the Dodgers, like I'm extremely interested at getting the top of the Dodgers order with some of the wraparound pieces, like Mookie Ohtani, Freddie, and then I can get Hayward and like Barnes or something at catcher. And Barnes is awful, don't get me wrong, but it's about getting the stack for the cheapest price available, because now nobody wants to play them. And to me, that the Dodgers are probably the top tournament team on the slate, and I did not intend on saying that at 12 o'clock today. I assumed they were going to be the highest owned. But the slate kind of flipped on his head when Castillo got ruled out.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. And I missed it. You had mentioned your favorite stack was when Taylor was talking.
Minnesota.
Which one was it? Minnesota. Okay. I like it.
Yep.
Very good. Okay. I feel like that's a very good rundown of pitchers and stacks and where we're at. But already people are asking, hey, can I play so-and-so at first? I think it was Low or Lau. So let's run through it position by position. We'll get everybody's questions answered that way. And then if you still have more, you can fire off some QQs in the RG Discord or the YouTube channel. By the way, make sure you're hitting us with a thumbs up. It's free content. And all you got to do is push the little thumbs up icon at the bottom of your screen. Maybe hide the chat if you're on your mobile phone. But it's easy, and it's kind of like paying us. It's my request. You pay us with a thumbs up. Chief, let's go through it position by position. Start me off at catcher. What do you like?
So I'm not going to have a lot of one-off at catcher today, Roth. But I will say if there's one one-off I was going to play. This guy's hit well this season.
It's
Obviously,
O'Hoppy, isn't it? It's O'Hoppy, isn't it? Say it's O'Hoppy.
It's not O'Hoppy.
Damn it.
It's
I
my
felt
boy.
mine.
bones.
It's my boy Ryan Jeffers. Like,
Oh, you love
he's
Jeffers.
just been. I mean, I feel like every time I come in here and talk about him, Roth, he hits a home run. Like almost every time I mention him. But he's been good this season, and so even though it's righty, I don't care. Like Medina's not someone I'm afraid of. So even outside of Minnesota stacks, I like Jeffers. Even righty. He's better against lefties. Don't get me wrong. But even righty here, I do like him. And then everybody else is just part of the stack for me. So I'm sure Taylor will come in and back clean up here and talk about these other guys.
I should have known it was Jeffers. Like, I know that's your boy. That's on me.
Yeah.
That's on me, man. All right, Taylor, what are you doing a catcher?
I think O'Hoppy is the one I like the most.
Yeah, let's go.
It's just a rough catcher slate. Like a lot of standouts. There's no Sal Perez, guys like that. Will Smith isn't playing. So I think it is kind of a position you play your stack with. Luis Torrens is likely to pull some ownership in the Mets stack. Austin Barnes, now that he's in for Smith in a Dodger stack. O'Hoppy is like the best hitting catcher on the slate, maybe. He and Mitch Garver, I guess. So O'Hoppy looks good. Gabriel Moreno in Diamondback back. And it's pretty rough. Like Ryan Jeffers, I guess, would have a case as the best hitting catcher too. So by default, he's going to look pretty good.
If you're playing cash games and you need like a cheapie at the position, is there like a stone cold punt that you can play here? Because it seems like none of them are great. So can I just get out of there with like 2-1 spent and take my 2 points?
2-1 is Sebi Zavala. I don't think you want to do that.
All right.
Barnes would probably be the guy at 2-3 just because of the Dodgers and, there's not much else down there. So might as well get a guy in the best offense on the slate.
Sure. Makes sense. Okay. How about first base, Taylor? What do we got there?
First base looks a little better. We have Ohtani here, Freddie Freeman, of course, also here. Ohtani, you can play outfield. Pete Alonso should be a popular option, regardless of whether you're stacking the Mets. Bryce Harper, not going to get any ownership. I don't think it gets Tanner Houck, but Houck's not as prolific in terms of strikeouts against lefties. So Harper and Schwarber look good for the Phillies. Even without a stack, you can certainly play them both. Christian Walker has a payout against Griffin Canning. Canning historically has a reverse split. This season he's been worse against lefties, but I'm not convinced that's the rule now. So Walker looks fantastic. I hate mentioning the Marlins. I feel like I do it every single time I come on here, but Severino, not the overpowering guy he used to be. So Josh Bell, I think, is perfectly fine kind of as a cheapy home run option at 3.7 on DK.
Okay, great. Chief, your thoughts at first?
Yeah, man, love Ohtani, love Harper, love Freeman. Definitely down with those guys. We talked about Pete Alonso, Carlos Santana betting in 6-0, 3,900. Love him as part of the Minnesota stack. And then you've got Lowe against Grove. I do think Texas is borderline sneaky today. I don't think they're as good as they were last year right now. We do have to get a little bit more healthy, but I still think Lowe at 3,800 is a good value there. And honestly, I think the White Sox have crept up on my list as a sneaky stack today. Like Emerson Hancock is not Luis Castillo. And so Gavin Sheets at 3,500, cheap power there. He could absolutely send one out of the park. Once again, this is not me endorsing the White Sox saying they're a good offense, but on this slate, I do think they're sneaky.
Okay, wonderful. Second base.
Yep. So at second, I mean, we've got a couple options here at second. Obviously, I'm going to go all the way down here. If you're stacking the Dodgers like I am, you're getting Gavin Lux at a really, really cheap price there. Willie Castro leading off. You guys know I love Minnesota today at 4,200. I think he's a good play. Ketel Marte up top would be my favorite, biggest spin.
Okay. Just got news. Corey Seager has been scratched. Now, does this change everything for you? Where do you stand now?
Well, I mean, that was one of the best shortstop plays in the slate, so now I got to go click more buttons. I mean, it doesn't change a lot because Texas wasn't primary for me, but losing Seager is still a big deal, man. Like, I mean, I'm borderline at the point now where all my big spins are going to come from the Dodgers, and I hate it.
Right. Yeah, you
know,
wanted a one-off.
That's basically where we are. Yeah.
I get you. Okay, well, we'll get to pivots and what we'll do with that position shortly. But first, let's finish off second base. Taylor, what do you got?
Yeah, even with Seager out, I'm still inclined to play Marcus Semien, even as a one-off stack. They're all worse now. But like Will said, it's not like it was a primary team anyway. It was kind of sneaky. So Semien still looks good leading off for them as a pay-up option that should be pretty low owned compared to Marte. I don't mind Gavin Lux hitting 7th for the Dodgers. He's cheap. He's kind of come around a little bit. Renjifo, if you're stacking the Angels, looks good. He's one of the few expensive hitters they have in that lineup. Don't mind Bryson Stott, another lefty to throw at Tanner Houck. And if you're punting, it's probably Nicky Lopez. Like Will said, Emerson Hancock is not Luis Castillo. Lopez is leading off the White Sox. He's awful, but he's cheap. So it matters.
Sometimes we accept that. Awful but cheap. Third base, Taylor, bring me through your thoughts.
Yeah, so Rafael Devers against Nola. Nola's numbers against lefties are pretty mediocre this season. He's not quite what he used to be. So Devers, you can make a case for as he's easily the top third baseman. It's a pretty awful position once you get past him. Royce Lewis is also cheap and hits a home run every day. So might as well do it to him.
True.
Jake Berger, I mentioned Miami. Renjifo, you can play here at third, also on DK. Ezekiel Duran, I haven't seen the updated lineup with Seager out, but I'm guessing Duran may have moved up a little bit. I don't think that salary for 2.6 on DK.
It's a shame. Oh, there it is. Yeah, this is what happens when you live in a house with 2 toddlers. Just got a random balloon animal handed to me. Thank you, sweetheart. All right, didn't expect that of all the things. And
Happy Father's Day, Roth. That's what you get. Your wife gets expensive perfume, Birkin bags, a night on the town, massages, and you get.
I get that guy.
Blow up.
That's cool.
Yep,
that'll work.
Balloon animal. Happy Father's Day, brother.
Thank you, Chief. Third base. What do you got?
Yeah, so I mean, boy, we're talking about Royce Lewis. Well, just put him on the list. He just hits home runs all the time. So here's something that Taylor mentioned that I want to just touch on very quickly. He said, well, Nola's, been meager to the left side of the plate. By meager, he means 18% this year. Like, this is what we're talking about with Aaron Nola and why his K rates have come down to lefties. He's below average. Like, to righties, he's still pretty good, but you throw a fair amount of lefties, which is what he's going to see today. I'm with him on the Devers call. Like, Devers could absolutely hit a home run here and then hit another one. That could be their 2-run score. So I like Devers quite a bit for sure. I'm in on Josh Smith against Grove. I am in on Eugenio Suarez at 3,300 in your Arizona stacks. And so, yeah, I will keep it at that. But yeah, third base is pretty weak today, which is another reason why I think Devers is actually way more important even against Aaron Nola. Another way to have a big spin and get different.
Yeah, and now let's talk short. This is where you just lost Seager, and I'm curious if there's like a 1-for-1 pivot. I don't know what Seager's price tag was, but
it was 5,500.
So can you switch and get more Devers in your lineup now? Like, what do you?
So in a 1-for-1 at shortstop, I'm now very afraid that Lindor's ownership is about to go through the roof. Yeah, because I mean, Lindor was already kind of the guy that everybody wanted to play, and Seager was a good pivot. And now you've lost Seager, so just straight up at shortstop, like Lindor's probably about to push. He might push 20% now. I mean, I think he is. He was already around 15. I'm going to try to bump up my Mookie Betts exposure as much as I can. And I like Minnesota as my favorite stack anyway, so I will have plenty of Carlos Correa. I'll have Josh Smith, which I talked about at third. And then everybody else, I'm not really playing too many other people. Like, I've just kind of gotten rid of most of the other shortstops. So shortstop is a spot where I'm probably not going below Josh Smith, and I'm okay with that because the outfield has a lot of cheap options.
Okay, very good. Taylor, your thoughts at short?
I think if you pay down, there is one that looks pretty good, and it's David Hamilton hitting second for Boston. We mentioned Devers as a lefty against Nola. Hamilton, another lefty. Still on base upside. He's cheap. He's been quite good, so he looks decent enough. Mookie looks like the top spend now. I do think Lindor is going to be chalk. Paul DeYoung, if you're stacking the White Sox, he's hit for some power this season. I think that's an okay option as a cheapie. Ditto for Neto in an Angel stack, and Edmundo Sosa is hitting fifth for the Phillies, so I guess he's playable by default.
Okay, by default. Outfield, what do you got there, Taylor?
Outfield, looks like Corbin Carroll's going to be popular. I mentioned Arizona as one of the chalkier stacks. Perfectly fine with him. Stolen base upside, even if his power's kind of sapped a little bit this season. It's not as good overall otherwise. Like Jake, another lefty you can consider in your Arizona stack. Jock Peterson, of course, for power. Otherwise, Luis Robert, I don't mind at all. Like I said, the White Sox are kind of interesting with Hancock in there. Not a good park for power, not a good park for offense in general, but Robert is kind of the one semi-respectable White Sox hitter at the point. Adolis Garcia, Jazz Chisholm. Chisholm against Severino looks like kind of a standout on this slate. David Dahl, a cheap Philly. I mentioned, is Schwarber in the lineup? I haven't seen it yet, but assuming Schwarber's in it, which he is, the lefty against Alka is perfect fun.
Okay. Chief, you mentioned a few kind of cheapies that you liked in the outfield. What's your overall thoughts?
Yeah, so I do like Jason Hayward. He's 3K in your Dodger stacks, but I would probably be getting the Hayward even outside of some of those Dodger stacks just because he's 3K. And so if you're we're not completely double barrel because neither of the pitchers are over 10K, but let's just, for the sake of this slate, if you're getting both 9K pitchers, I think you will need some salary relief in one or two places, and I think Hayward definitely fits that bill. So you got Jesus Sanchez down here at 3,400. He's actually got, well, both of these guys actually have the red dot for salary relief. You've got both of those guys. I mentioned Gavin Sheets at first. You can also get him in the outfield, which is mostly where I think I will play him today. At 3,500, he feels, really, really good for me. If we come up just a tad, Byron Buxton buried down here in the 7 hole, and then you've got Larnach batting in the 2 hole. You've got Buxton batting in the 7 hole. Both are outfielders for Minnesota. Buxton is $100 more. I do like Larnach more, but I don't think we need to be ignoring Buxton, and neither one seem to be getting a whole lot of ownership. I think, once again, this is one of the best spots of the day. You can also play Willie Castro in the outfield if you need to do that. And then last but not least, I'm going to mention Corbin Carroll specifically again, who hasn't really had a crazy good season. But when you look at Griffin Canning, first of all, right now he's not good to either side of the plate, Rob. Only 15%, a 50% K rate, 15.4% to lefties, 15.6% to righties. And Carroll hasn't been hitting for a lot of power, but there are a couple things that are giving me some encouragement here. Walk rate at 12.2% for Carroll, 18.1% K rate. So he should have some opportunities to get on base. He is a guy that can pick up some steals, Raw. So if he can just get on base here, I think we've got a shot at some light upside. Canning on the season, 10% walk rate to lefties, 253 ISO, 394 WOBA, and a 33.9% fly ball rate. And I guess you're saying, well, why is that important? Carroll's been hitting the ball on the ground for some reason. So this is actually going to help him today, facing a guy that's got, a fairly high fly ball percentage and line drive percentage at 26.6% and giving up hard hits at about 50. I know I kind of went through the rabbit hole there, but my point is the Arizona lefties should be good today. And I think Carroll's going to be a part of that. Okay,
very good. Guys, is it true FanDuel locks here shortly because they've got the Rays on the slate?
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay. So real quick, Taylor, is there anything that we need to know here from that first game on FanDuel that you feel is important to note, whether it's, pitching or hitting wise, as we're just 2-3 minutes out from lock?
It's a very low total game, but I do think Taj Bradley looks like a pretty good option for 8,500 over there against the Cubs at home. Projects quite well. Cubs offense is kind of pulled off over the last few weeks. Even Justin Steele on the other side is okay, but he's a bit pricey compared to what he has been on DK lately, at least. So Bradley looks pretty good. I think Steele is more of a scary tournament play.
Okay, very good. Let's do Bootleg Head Chopper says no. Roth FanDuel locks at 8:15. Is there's got to be different slates happening? I don't know.
FanDuel locks in like 3 minutes. The
That's what I
main
thought.
slate. So
That's what I thought. Okay, let's give some home run picks. That is what we need to do. That is what the people want. They want the bombs, and then we'll answer some questions up until lock or until we run out of said questions. So Taylor, I'm going to put you on the spot first. Give me 2 or 3 names that you feel good about hitting a bomb.
So with an obvious one, I will go Pete Alonso as a shout out to Grant there with his Pete Alonso Twitter.
Let's go.
Tyler O'Neill, I think, is kind of sneaky, even against Aaron Nola from the right side. And Joe Ryan has been pretty power prone this season. Seth Brown is pretty power happy with as a sleeper.
Okay. Chief, you got a few names for me?
Yeah, man. On the season, Michael Lorenzen has been leaning reverse splits, and that's mainly this season. Now, last season he was still, had a pretty high WOBA to righties, but he didn't have as high ISO numbers. This season he does 255 ISO to righties, 421 WOBA. That's going to be problematic for Mookie Betts. Let's go, Roth. Not only are we going to call this a home run call, Roth, this is going to be a first at bat home run call.
Oh, baby.
First at bat, Mookie Betts taking Michael Lorenzen deep here. Really like him today. I'm going to come to this Minnesota game. No secret here, man. My boy, Ryan Jeffers, 252 ISO, 20% K rate, 354 WOBA against Mr. Medina, who's also been terrible. So I like him quite a bit. And then, Roth, you said 2 or 3. I'm going to go out to Arizona. I talked about these lefties against Griffin Canyon. I do like Corbin Carroll. I think Jock Peterson is most likely to hit a home run out of this lefty group. Give me Jock Peterson also.
Good stuff. Good stuff, guys. We should note here, by the way, this show is free, and all that we ask is you hit thumbs up. But if you really want to learn, if you really want to get the tools and pick everybody's brain, you got to sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. We got all kinds of sports going on. And we have an option for whatever level you are looking for. You can get a 6-month Cabo subscription at an exclusive price of $469.99. That is actually saving $250 as opposed to doing it month by month. So that 6-month option is a good one for you. And you can get your first month of RG Premium for $40 off for limited time. Plus, if you just want a test run, you just want to see what it's all about, what are all these people talking about? This fantastic product, all these great things that we've got. Well, you can check it out for yourself. 3-day pass is $19.99. Check the links in our description for more info. Make sure you are getting that done. Let's see what we've got. If you've got questions, they can be about baseball, basketball, food. That's it. That's it. Baseball, basketball, and food. That's all I've got. I was going to add another category, but nothing inspiring came to mind. So those are the topics of conversation that are allowed here. A few people saying, what about Rooker Revenge? What about Rooker Revenge? Taylor, are you ignoring Rooker Revenge? That's what like 7 people in the chat specifically said.
Yeah, I kind of forgot he was a twin, I guess. He didn't become good until he was in Oakland. So I am low over on Rooker Revenge. But if you're going to play an A, he's probably the one you want.
There you go. Okay, that Rooker Revenge, man. What else do we have? Scrolling down a little bit. QQ, is beer a food? No. This is like, is a hot dog a sandwich? No, it's a hot dog.
Is beer a food?
It can be. I've definitely skipped meals to just drink beer, but I don't think that is healthy, nor do I think that qualifies right now. What do we got? Here's a few QQs. Razzle Dazzle says, Chief, I'm struggling at third. If I don't play Lewis, ... Finish the sentence.
I mean, to me, it's semi-psych dependent, but I think if you're not going to play Lewis, then once again, I'm going to go back to the situation with Devers. I think he's really good today, even against Nola.
Okay, very good. Your thoughts on Severino in FanDuel Cash, Taylor?
Let me see what he is over there. Severino is, I don't know. He's 9,500. He's not even cheap. So I would pay all the way up for Crochet or Ryan, or down to Bot. I'm not really into Severino, honestly.
Okay. J Sam says Chief FanDuel single entry one off JD or Jock.
Jock.
Chief, I'm coming back to you for this one. You are a barbecue type, correct?
I am.
Yeah, I thought so. Ribs or brisket? What is your official pick? You go to a place and you can either get ribs or brisket. Where you like? I'm a 2-meat plate kind of guy. I'm getting both. But if you can only get one, what are you doing?
I'm going ribs because I can pick that thing up from the bone and snatch that meat off of there. I don't need a fork. Give me the rib.
It's so satisfying. Taylor, you have a strong lean, ribs or brisket?
Definitely brisket. I think my hot take is that I don't really get the ribs thing. Like, I like the meat. I just don't really. The gnawing off the bone is a little savage.
You're missing. That's the best part of it. I'm with Chief. That's you're ripping it off the bone is actually the best part of the ribs.
Do you guys like bone-in wings for the same reason?
Yes, actually, yes. I prefer bone-in
I like bone-in wings.
Yeah,
I do like
okay.
But here's the thing, though, Rob, which I know we got to go. But most of the time, ribs are going to be sauced. Brisket usually isn't going to be as sauced as much as ribs. So that's the other part of the experience. The sauce with it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you can sauce your own brisket. If I'm at a really good spot, if I'm at like a critically acclaimed, this is the best spot in town, I want the brisket because high-end brisket, I feel like is next level.
Oh,
whereas ribs, like ribs are good no matter what. So if I'm at just like an average place, I'm probably grabbing ribs because they're good. You know, they're always
Rob, it's kind of like if you're in Texas and you get a good tri-tip, or Cali, you get a good tri-tip. Like that's you know what I'm saying? All right.
I made my first tri-tip the other day. It was freaking fire. Like I couldn't believe how good it was. All right, what else do we got? We ate some time for maybe some real questions coming in. Don Play, I don't recall, says Taylor, Carroll for Arizona or Kepler for Minnesota in one entry lineups.
I prefer Carroll, but both are fine.
Okay. Chief Eric says, do the A's win the slate today?
No.
Okay.
Eric thinks the A's are going to win the slate every day.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, you got to know who's questioning here. King says, I quit eating pigs. It's bad for your health. Nah, man. We dine on swine in this family. Just pulled some ribs out of the freezer that I plan on cooking.
But guess what? You can get beef ribs too. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Beef ribs do exist if you don't want to go the pork direction.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that. What do we got? This is not a food question, though it does begin with burger. DK Cash Taylor, Burger, Bell, Sheets, or Vaughn?
I think it would be Bell. That's a lot of gross stuff, but probably Bell.
Okay. Let's see. And like someone else is like, isn't red meat bad for you? And someone said, isn't pork bad for you? Are you just going to quit eating pork and red meat because it's bad for you? Are you just going to be miserable the rest of your life? Don't do that. You got to live a little, man. You don't want to live to 130. Die at 85 and have enjoyed it. That's the better choice. Zach says, we eat gator ribs down here. My guy must be from Florida like I am. Shout out, Zach. I eat a little gator tail for sure. What do we got? We had a question here. Which two? I don't know. I don't know what he's in. Which two picketers would y'all give for the last slate 3 games, if I might ask?
I'm not sure.
What team is he trying to say?
Pitchers? I don't know.
Pitchers. I bet he's saying pitchers. Which 2 pitchers if it's the last slate? So like a 3 game, I guess. So Chief, that seems like that seems like hard work, but I have faith.
One's going to be Garrett Crochet, and the other's probably going to be Brandon Pfaadt, I would assume.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. Here we go. Chris Brown in the house. Taylor, you want Yoshida in a sock stack or McCarthy with Carroll and Jock?
I would go the McCarthy route.
Chief, is this a more one-off slate or a stacky slate? I mean, generally they're stacky slates, but occasionally not.
Yeah, I still think it's stack slate. I don't usually get into like 3 or 4 one-offs unless we're down to 2 or 3 games. But so I think definitely stack here.
Yeah. Andrew says, Chief, are you fine going with a full Dodger stack and then 3 cheap one-offs? That's interesting.
Love it. That could work perfectly. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Taylor, your favorite contrarian stack that can win it all?
I guess it would be the Angels. But I do think the Oak thing is interesting.
Okay. We just had
because Ryan's been prone to power, and if it's the day he gives up 4 home runs, it's a 6-game slate, and no one's playing them.
Yeah, we did have someone say, I don't know why, but I kind of love the Angels today. So now you have some support of a few other people saying, I don't mind the Angels today. So you're not the only one. Taylor, any extreme hitters or pitchers umps tonight? Do you have that data readily available?
Let's see. I can pull it up.
And while you're pulling that up, Taylor, what I would say is I think the sneaky stack is Boston. Like, I can't underestimate how many lefties they have in this lineup for Nola today. Like, this could get really bad if he's not pitching well or BABIP is not in his favor early.
We have extreme hitters, umpires in Minnesota.
Oh, and good hitting weather.
Arizona. So Fott and Ryan have hitters umps.
Oh, buddy.
Pitchers umps in Boston, in New York, and hitters in Seattle, neutral ump in Los Angeles.
Okay, very good. Got a few more QQs coming in here. Taylor, using a full Minnesota stack, is playing Ohtani as a one-off worth having to use a low-price sneaky pitcher DK large field tournament?
Depends on how low priced the sneaky pitcher is, because once you get past like Fott, it gets pretty grim. So I'd probably pay for instead of Ohtani. You're going low, but
yeah,
Ohtani's always alluring.
Yeah, and that was Chief's thought as well. Where like if you're playing only maybe 2 or 3 lineups, probably just play the 2 top pairing pitchers and get creative elsewhere because those guys are kind of head and shoulders better than the rest. Your favorite type of cheese, Taylor? I will let you answer first. Your favorite type of cheese? Don't get this wrong.
I love cheese, so it's in the wheelhouse. So
let's hear it. Oh, the wheelhouse. I see what you did. Your favorite type? What do you got?
I am a huge fan of blue cheese.
Oh.
I'm a huge fan of feta cheese. Blue cheese is phenomenal, and you're wrong if you have the opposite opinion.
It's literally mold. It's just could you put some mold on my food, please? Thank you. Yes, some crumbled mold. Yes, more mold, please. Delicious.
You just said you don't care about eating healthy, so
bro,
keep that mold up.
No, Chief, I'm hoping you have a better cheese take than that. Do you have a favorite cheese?
I have several favorites in no particular order, because I'm also a cheese fan, so I like different cheeses. I like cheddar, which is like probably the chalk. I really like feta cheese. I love Parmesan cheese, like grated Parmesan. Oh, grated Parmesan is fantastic. I'll just keep it there. But like feta is probably the one that's a little outside of what people get the norm. But it's really good, man. It's got a really good flavor. Feta on pizza. You get that, some good olive oil going. Come on, man.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Okay. I am a big sharp cheddar. Sharp cheddar is my go-to. Fresh Parmigiano Reggiano, like Chief mentioned, just straight right on there. Yeah. And nothing wrong with a little pepper jack either. If you want to kick it up a notch, I will never, ever, ever touch that blue cheese. I will send my whole plate back if there's anything. I don't want your blue cheese mold contaminating the rest of my food. Gonna need a whole new plate. Let's see if we got any questions. I like cheese is good. Yeah, my favorite kind of cheese is Dave Potts. Cheese is good. That's the best kind of cheese.
Is it true that he doesn't even like cheese?
It is. Yeah, cheese is good. Does not like cheese. He thinks cheese is bad, as it turns out. It came from like a band write-up. The name. Okay. Here's how it was. There was a write-up about him because he's a musician and he was a professional musician for a good chunk of his life. And I think someone wrote up, like, this Dave Potts music is a little bit cheesy, but sometimes cheese is good. And he took that, sometimes cheese is good, and made that his DFS handle. I'm pretty sure that's how the story goes. I may have completely made that up, but we'll have to check with him next time he's in. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where cheese is good comes from, not because cheese is actually good. Hey, you know what?
That is.
We answered all the questions and we've talked about cheese for 7 minutes. So I think we can probably bounce on out of here. For Chief, for Taylor, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crushed.